What if I told you that one of the pivotal games happening at 8 o'clock in that later time frame for week number one is not in fact going to be LSU Clemson, but it's going to be two teams going at it from the group of five that have some aspirations for the upcoming college football season? What if that 8 o'clock matchup is between Eastern Michigan coming out of the MAC and Texas State out of the Sun Belt in a game that we here at College Football Red Zone believe is a CFP elimination game? The loser of this game eliminated from CFP contention. And certainly some fun coaches that we want to talk about in this breakdown. Seeing almost two different philosophies, kind of like old school versus new school in a sense, because you look over on the Eastern Michigan sideline, for example, and Chris Creighton has been around for an extremely long time. He's entering his 12th year in his time at Eastern Michigan. And he's doing his best to kind of navigate a brand new era of college football with NIL and the transfer portal being more prevalent than even a few years ago when Cincinnati, from the American Conference during that time, made the college football playoff. He did bring some roster overhaul that is going to help reshape both sides of the ball. But while this team is going to be facing questions about leadership, offensive identity, and even maybe a lack of defensive experience as they try to chase a turnaround in the MAC following what was kind of an underwhelming finish, I do have to also give my flowers to Chris Creighton, who may be one of the most underrated coaches in all of college football, right? I need you guys to remember when he took over, it was either for the 2013 season or around the 2012 season, around that time frame. Eastern Michigan, for no lack of a better term, was an absolute joke in football. They were one of the bottom. They were consistently at the bottom in college football. And, Chris Creighton coming over in Ypsilanti, the site of a Greek, named after a Greek war hero, he's at least been able to bring Eastern Michigan to a level of respectability. And even though his record isn't amazing during his time with the Eagles, Chris Creighton, I think, is one of the most underrated coaches in all of college football. And he's going to be going up against another coach that we might think he's going to be on the rise, right? Texas State has had its best 2 years in the FBS in the last 2 years, and it's thanks to GJ Keene, who since he took over, he's 16-10 and has provided Texas State its first two winning seasons since making the transition up to the FBS level. Now, there's some questions on the Texas State sideline as well. We're seeing what possibly could be a four-way battle for the quarterback position last time that we checked. But regardless of who wins the quarterback battle, there are some talented players down there in San Marcos, Texas, that I think is going to make this offense fun to watch once again. Not only having Bo Starks and Chris Don Jr. on the outside, but you also have Lincoln Pear in the backfield as well, who I think could create a very dynamic offense for the Texas State Bobcats this year, regardless who ends up winning that starting job. And it's going to be an offense that's going to be led by, of guys that have a mix of athleticism and a tad bit of experience at other schools fighting for starting roles, while you're looking at Eastern Michigan that is still trying to figure out his identity going into the 25 season, but looking to use the structure and the coaching experience from Chris Creighton to try to keep themselves competitive. Now, talking about Eastern Michigan, who on paper, and you're going to see this with the model as well, and with Redzone with what FanDuel is thinking. So, actually, let's just go ahead and check the model real quick. Let's check what are FanDuel and the model thinking. So, you see that Texas State is a significant favorite, a 13.5-point favorite. It's quite a bit to be looking at right now, right? So, this is where things get really interesting. I think if you play this game in week 6 or week 7, you're looking at a team where Texas State, to be honest with you, would probably kick Eastern Michigan's ass if we get to even the midway point of the season, especially if these two teams were to hypothetically meet in a bowl game. That's something that I think would definitely be fought over, right? And Texas State, while they're working through, well, both teams are working through their new pieces. I think Texas State is going to be a much more talented team. So hearing all of this and seeing the red zone model and what FanDuel is thinking, you would think I'll be riding Texas State no problem. As Lee Corso was saying, not so fast, my friend. I really think that Chris Creighton, I think his coaching ability is going to be put on display this Saturday. I think, not that I think that GJ Keene is a bad coach by any things. I think he's a solid coach and probably the best coach that Texas State has ever had in his own right. But I think Chris Creighton is simply on another level, and I think he's going to certainly outcoach GJ Keene in this one. And I do think because of that structure and what we know, what he wants his team to be, and it's going to take some time for Eastern Michigan to get there fully. But I think Chris Creighton is going to have Eastern Michigan surprise some folks. And dare I say it, they could mess around and go on the road and pull this upset off because of the fact that it is week number 1 and because it is so early. And, you know, in these early season matchups, we tend to see teams more likely, more than often than not, lose games on their own than to go out and seize the victories. And with what Chris Creighton teams typically look like, I think that we are going to see this game being a lot closer than what we're expecting for Texas State, even though I think we can all, most of us agree, when you look at Texas State roster and you look at Eastern Michigan's roster, you have a clear talent advantage in favor of the Texas State Bobcats that I think is going to really serve them well, especially as they build continuity and chemistry deeper into the season. So with that said, because we think that even though Texas State is clearly the better team from a roster personnel standpoint, we do believe in the coaching advantage of Chris Creighton, and I think that's going to really show. And I think that this is going to be much more of a bar fight than really not only what Vegas is expecting, but I think what a lot of people are expecting in general. I still think Texas State does win the game. Don't get me wrong. I think Texas State's going to get to 1-0, but again, I think this is going to be a lot closer of a game than what people expect. So I'll give Texas State the victory. I think they're going to win this one, but at the same time, I'm going to also say that I think Eastern Michigan can mess around. They can cover, and this might possibly be an upset alert game. Now, this game will not be on College Football Red Zone, but it is a game that we will definitely keep tabs on. We'll say that Texas State wins 28-24. So Texas State will win and get to 1-0, but we still think that Eastern Michigan probably will cover at the same time if we had to make that choice and decision.